Good evening. Hello, everyone. My name's Dan Flatt, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Alumni Association Committee here at the University of Leicester. I'm really pleased that so many of my fellow alumni are able to join this evening, so welcome wherever you are in the world. So no matter where you are in the world, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to you as you join us today for Moving Up the Career Ladder, My Lessons Learned, led by Alumnus and AIFC Governor Renat Bekturov. Apologies for any pronunciation there, Renat. Renat will be starting his talk very shortly, but before he does, please feel free to keep your videos on for the duration of today's event. Please keep your microphones on mute so that we can all hear what Renat has to say. And as a reminder, you can find your microphone and camera button at the bottom of your screen. Don't worry, if you are struggling to mute yourself, as a member of the alumni engagement team will be able to support you with this and turn it off on your behalf. Please do post your questions for the Q&A in the chat box, and we'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A section towards the end of the talk. Remember, you can use the chat also to introduce yourself. I can already see a lot of you introducing yourself, so it's so great to see many of you here. So it would be great to hear what you studied, what year you graduated, and also who's coming from furthest away in the world from Leicester today. To stay in the loop with alumni news and events, please make sure that your contact details are up to date. And if you are a user of social media, you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as well on @Leicester Alumni. So without any further ado, I'll pass over to Renat now, and we really look forward to the session, and I really hope you enjoy this evening as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Again, good evening, dear fellow alumni of the Leicester Uni, and thanks for the Leicester team to organizing this event. For me, it's such a pleasure. It's 11 p.m. here in Astana, Kazakhstan. And again, I'm delighted to share my experience, how my career has developed, and hope for some questions from you, whether it's about the career or about where I work, any actually matter that you think I can be helpful with my answer. So without further ado, let me share my screen. Hope you can see now. So a little bit of my background. I have graduated from the Leicester Uni with the master's degree in banking and finance with distinction back in 2009, and I was the scholar of Bolashak Scholarship. That is the scholarship funded by the government of my country. And since then, I have visited Leicester University this summer as a 2022 Study UK Global Alumni Award winner in Business and Innovation category. And that was, again, as I said, my first visit to the Leicester Uni after almost 14 years. The university has changed a lot. I can see that the infrastructure has developed. They have a new campus, and it was again walking down the alleys of memory. And thanks for the alumni engagement team for hosting me and organizing the tour again. Before the Leicester University, I had my undergraduate degree from the Kazakh University. That's the Kazakh State University in International Relations, actually. I'm also a holder of the Chartered Financial Analyst, hence CFA charter, and also I was selected for the Presidential Youth Talent Pool here in my country in 2020, and actually among the 300 selected individuals, I ranked #1 in terms of scores that I had. On my work experience, as Dan said, now I'm the governor of the Astana International Financial Center. Before, I was the CEO and CFO at Astana International Exchange. In a minute, I'll give you brief information of what is Astana International Financial Center is. And I worked at the National Investment Corporation. That's an investment arm of our central bank. We have launched the first investment programs for our government in alternative instruments such as hedge funds, private equity, and etc. And before that, I have worked at the Development Bank of my country, of Kazakhstan, on treasury and also the liability side. I was involved in the a few landmark transactions. For example, in 2012, we actually did the first ever sukuks, which are bonds issued, Sharia compliant bonds that were actually first sukuks in the CIS, former Soviet countries, among former Soviet countries. And before Leicester Uni, I have worked at the ABN AMRO. Some of you may remember that bank, which was later taken over by RBS, its branch in Kazakhstan. So what actually AIFC is, let me give you a brief information on that. I'll talk why I am enthusiastic about my job, and as the topic suggested, about my 5 takeaways that I have from my career path. So Astana International Financial Center is actually a financial center. It's a separate jurisdiction in my country. So Kazakh jurisdiction is basically a rule-based jurisdiction, as many countries in my part of the world. We have, as many struggled after the global financial crisis and economy. Our banking sector was hit hardly, and then after the 2014 debt crisis in Europe, so banking sector has been suffering from number of crises, and the leadership of the country thought, like, what other engines we need to make sure that the capital is flows seamlessly within the country and from the abroad. So we decided, we looked at the experience of many countries and learned that one of the kind of key factors that successful countries with the developed capital market have is actually a jurisdiction that is based on the principle-based jurisdiction, or as we call it here, like English, law-based jurisdiction. So that's with that idea, we started the project in 2015. We have, or the country has passed a special constitutional statute about the Astana International Financial Center. We have even later amended our constitution to make sure that to allow actually a separate jurisdiction within the country. You can find some similar centers in the Middle East, like Dubai International Financial Center, which was the model for AIFC. And in Abu Dhabi Global Markets, again, it's still in UAE, then Qatar Financial Center, and etc. So the differences that we have is that the jurisdiction itself, as I said, which provides the flexibility in commercial matters and some of the corporate matters. To be exact, our employment regulation, for example, is a little bit different than in the Kazakh employment jurisdiction. So I would say hiring and firing processes are much easier in AIFC, but also incorporation of a legal entity is very much different than in main part of the Kazakhstan. So basically in Kazakhstan, you can have for business purposes 2 types of legal entities, like limited liability partnerships and joint stock companies. But in AIFC, you can find many different forms that are common in many other jurisdictions, like general partnerships, limited liability, private companies, public companies, private companies limited by shares, special purpose companies, and etc. So in these terms, it's easier kind of to structure your company and in your investments into our country and actually region at large. Also in Kazakhstan, if it's a joint stock company, there are, for example, only 2 types of shares that can be issued, common shares and preferred shares. But in AIFC, they can be many different forms, like Class A, Class B, and etc. Well, I guess maybe it's too much details, but so the focus of our center is to develop, as I said, capital markets and also the new types of products like fintech, like crypto, like tokens, Islamic finance, green finance or sustainable finance, and etc. So in the constitutional statute, actually, there are 5 main objectives that help to attract investments to the Kazakhstan, to cultivate the security market, foster a dynamic and innovative financial services landscape, advance the financial professional services, and secure global acknowledgement of AIFC as the financial center. I kind of mentioned some of the specifics of our jurisdiction, but one important thing is that we also have our own AIFC court, international court and arbitration center, and all our judges that work for AIFC are all UK citizens and either former or active lawyers. So the person who has actually helped us to set up the AIFC court was the Lord Wolf. He was president of the English Royal Court in 2002-2005, I believe, and the current most senior judge in the AIFC is Lord Mance. He was the deputy head of the Supreme Court of UK. So that kind of allows trust in our court and jurisdiction that all the disputes are settled in fair and just with fairness and justice. And for those who don't want to take their matters for the court straight away, there is an international arbitration center where matters are settled through mediation or arbitration. So in 5 years, despite that as I said, we started the project in 2015, so we passed the law in from 16 to 18. We were building the main areas of the center, and we actually opened the doors of the financial center in 2018. That's why we kind of say it's our 5th year of operation. So in 5 years, we had over 70 cases in our court. First year it was 0. Next year we had like 1 or 2. And last year we had 35 cases. This year is not over, but we already have almost 30 cases. And actually, compared to other financial centers, the numbers we believe are good. But arbitration center had even more. It had over 2,100 cases that went through the arbitration center, and the judgments are made, and they are all 100% enforced. In general, there are over 2,000 legal entities now registered with the Astana International Financial Center. We have helped the country to attract over 10 billion US dollars of investments, either through public markets or private markets. One of the main entities here, Astana International Exchange. So we have also created a separate exchange in AIFC. So that's kind of brief information about the Astana International Financial Center. I mean, if there is interest, of course, I can answer more questions on that. But again, going back to my career and then my lessons I've learned, as you saw, I have undergraduate degree actually in international relations. Back then, in early 2000s, here in Kazakhstan, we still had the older kind of educational system that was left after the Soviet Union. So I have studied not 4 years my undergraduate degree, but for 5 years. So I have invested a lot of time and effort in international relations. But on my, I think, last year in the university, I kind of came to conclusion that international relations, it wasn't something that I have thought about, meaning that I have graduated from high school with what we call here gold medal that allows you to choose basically any university, and then government will pay for you. So everyone basically choose like what they think is prestigious. And I thought being a diplomat is prestigious. That's why I went to the international relations, that I thought we'll be dealing with very important matters like world conflicts, help to settle them, and etc. But when I was again in last year of my university and had a practical practice in our foreign affairs ministry, I learned that most of the work is actually a protocol. So you'll be basically preparing the documents and getting ready for big events where like ministers or presidents participate. So I thought that's a little bit boring for me. And at the same year, I have learned about the Forex trading online. It may not be like a proper broker, but I came across the global financial markets. So I have invested my first $100 and basically lost it within the few days. So it wasn't a very successful acquaintance with world of finance. But it actually really interested me. I thought that this is something that I want to do, but I want to learn more. So I have decided that I will not be doing any more international relations, but I want to go to finance, and secured a job within ABN AMRO, but in a retail segment. So I was doing actually with the non-paid small retail loans, and learned about the treasury department, about the securities trading, and that's where I wanted to move. So I decided that I will apply for a postgraduate degree, and I wanted to do it in somewhere abroad, but in finance. So it was a little bit challenging, given that I didn't have a proper undergraduate training in math or econometrics, but still managed to get an offer from the Uni of Leicester. Had to spend some time in the library to fill the gaps in my education. But as again I mentioned before, managed to graduate with distinctions. Of the first lessons I learned is actually to be ready to change, because life always kind of brings different challenges that we may not be ready to, and more we are flexible, adaptable, and open to change, and we can embrace the change, better we are set for success. Even like if we look at the nature, right, the species that survive and that exist today are not maybe the strongest of their type, right, but they're actually the ones who are more flexible and adaptable. I guess same goes for the humankind, and I think that is applicable to career path, to actually anything that we do in our life. So it's very, I think, important to be able to change and embrace change, especially in times like now, when means of doing business and actually communicating with people or anything is changing rapidly. So the innovation actually, I believe, is driving the world. So again, being ready for the change and embracing change is important. So that's a lesson I learned when kind of changing my career path, even if it didn't start at that time, from international relations to finance. And the lesson that I have used throughout my career a lot is this one. Second story I want to tell is that after coming back from the university, I thought that, I had a international diploma, so I thought that anyone would want to hire me, but that wasn't the case, because it was 2009, exactly after the global financial crisis, and financial sector wasn't really growing, it was actually shrinking, so they were not hiring a lot of people. So I had to spend some time looking for a job, but managed again to get an interview with one of the deputy CEOs at the Development Bank of Kazakhstan, and was hired there as an associate in a treasury department. And as I've mentioned, I've been involved in a number of few transactions, the Sukuk I mentioned. So I spent I think 2 or 3 years there as an associate. And then this opportunity arose that one of my colleagues left the bank for another opportunity, and there was an associate vacancy there. And I thought that my head of my department, he will consider promoting me, given that I have kind of already built some experience, or was successfully involved in transactions, and had fulfilled the KPIs I had. And then I spoke with him, right? Can I be considered for the role? And he says we're thinking actually about eliminating the vacancy, and because we think we don't need additional person. And he says like decision is already kind of made by the managing director who supervises the human resources department. So I decided that I'll speak to myself without asking my direct supervisor. And so just went to her assistant and asked for a time slot so I can meet the managing director on HR, and explained my case to her. And, you know, when you are a senior person, you kind of think that this is small for your subordinates, that the difference is marginal between, especially if the pay-wise is not that different, being analyst or associate. But when you are in that role, it's actually a huge difference. It's the recognition of your input. So the lesson I learned is like, be humble but be bold. So I think and not I think that my boss, my supervisor, told me that was kind of bold from my side to go directly to the managing director on HR and raise my case by myself. But in the end, I mean, I was promoted for the role, so they instead eliminated the role of an analyst in the department. And again, this lesson I have learned, I have used a lot throughout my career. Being humble, but at the same time being bold, and especially delivering your ideas, your beliefs. Again, the case of just establishing an AIFC, and we had a lot of even resistance in the beginning within the country, whether we actually need a financial center or not, whether it's a risk to have a enclave of separate jurisdiction in the country or not. And I'm not saying that, of course, I was the one who convincing everyone. Of course, we had more senior leadership of AIFC, but all of us were involved in this task, and we were bold in pushing this, what we believed in. At the same time, it's very important to be humble. So I think that if you always maintain these relationships with the people you meet along the way, building your career, it always pays off. And here I can talk about whether I believe in karma or not, whether I believe in a karma in management, and I would say I do. So better we treat people around us, better we treat ourselves, it always pays out along the way. The next kind of story is that after 4 years in Development Bank of Kazakhstan, the management has changed. So, and I was offered the position to be a head of department in National Investment Corporation. But at the same time, the new management also proposed for me to stay in DBK, and they were proposing me a good pay increase. But I decided to leave to the National Investment Corporation. Even in terms of a reward, it was, I mean, like pay-wise, it wasn't of the same level. However, I got a little bit of more independence as a head of department to kind of be responsible for the result, be responsible for people, and do at least some of the things and some of ideas that I had. And that's when I completed in NIC my CFA exams and really started kind of diving deeper into the capital markets, what are the purpose of the capital markets, why do they exist, and that the capital markets is kind of the most, I guess, effective system to raising capital for the best ideas, good entrepreneurs. And I thought that first, of course, as a treasury, as a person working in treasury, I thought I'll go into the investment, maybe investment banking, maybe abroad, and then build some wealth. But after spending some time at NIC and actually seeing that we don't have in the country proper, vibrant market, and it's difficult for business raise capital except for loans from the banks. I kind of thought that if I want something from my life is actually to make a contribution for development of the economy of Kazakhstan. And I thought that having a vibrant capital market is one of the effective ways to do so. And basically the lesson I kind of learned is that it's important to have a purpose in your life, and it's not always easy to discover it or to find it. So if at some point, I mean, I guess it's relevant for younger people. If you don't have it, at least you can create one. Think of one later on. Again, as lesson one said, you can kind of change and adapt. But it's very important to have this purpose and think long term, because we always make choices, right, in our life. Oh, I remember the speech of Adina Friedman. She's the CEO of NASDAQ. Her recent speech on the graduation ceremony of American University in Washington, D.C. I think you can find it online. She talked about different things, but one of the statements she made is that our life is actually a like portfolio of the choices that we make, right? So we all life makes us different choices, small, big, long-term, short-term, and we cannot always tell right straight away where it has a long-term implication or doesn't, the choice we make. But if we choose friendship, if we choose long-term goals, basically she says that that's choosing optimism, because with the optimism we always make our choice hoping for better outcome. But another thing that, again, relevant to this, my lesson is that it's always good to have a long-term guiding purpose that helps us to make choices in our lives. And I had few, right, after already stepping on this path that I want to help my country create a vibrant capital market. Of course, I had some other offers to move on to other directions. But I decided those opportunities, if I choose them, will drive me away from my long-term goal, even though, again, opportunities could be better in terms of compensation-wise. And not everyone has to have a same purpose, right? For someone, it could be building a wealth for a family, securing a good education for my kids, and etc., etc. Whatever it is, I think it's very important to have this purpose and long-term goal, because life doesn't really have, in my mind, a recipe of success for everyone. But if you stay focused and your decisions are driven by this one big vision in the outcome, this hopefully will play out. And again, I'm not saying that I have lived all my life and I have achieved everything that I wanted, but still, I think this helped me a lot. Again, that I have a long-term kind of purpose and goal in my life. The next lesson I've learned is, I guess, more of a operational question, and it's something that I have learned when I moved to a managerial role, is that hard skills, knowledge is very important in building a solid career. So as I have started when shifting to finance, I went to Leicester. I put a lot of effort so that I can graduate with distinction, and I have learned and got everything that the university could give me in terms of knowledge, but also network. I also did go for CFA, did pass through the CFA exams again to build my hard skills, and they were critical to get recognition, to move up the career ladder. But as you move into a more managerial role, the hard skills kind of start to become less of a factor, a success factor. So the soft skills are get a better, bigger role to play in your life, and more senior role you get, even more you have to sharpen your soft skills. And by soft skills, I mean like time management, public speaking, decision making, and etc. Everything. Because as you move to the manager role, you first start have to learn to delegate. And a lot of people, like for example me, who have kind of been straight A students, you think that you can trust you basically only yourself, so you kind of want to do all the job yourself. But in a managerial role, there is so much workload, that if you try to do everything yourself, you just doomed to fail. So you have to learn to delegate. And then again, as you move, for example, to the more C-level roles, interaction among different stakeholders becomes very important. So more clearer, you can deliver your thoughts better, you can manage the relationships, understand people is very important. Also having an empathy to people, ability to kind of place yourself in their shoes, and ability to take their point of view again is very important to your messages to their kind of a view of the world. I think that is very important. And this day, again, still the same. This day, as a governor of AIFC, of course, I use my hard skills, I don't know, maybe 10% of my time, right? It's good that I know, of course, all the nitty-gritties of the financial industry, how global capital markets work. But 90% of the time I spent talking with different politicians, ministers, CEOs of different corporations, and again, convincing them either to invest into Kazakhstan or structure their transactions through AIFC, or proving that AIFC needs certain changes to the legislation, a certain support from the government or ministry or parliament or etc. So again, I think like 90% of my time now I spent interacting with other people inside AIFC, outside AIFC, outside Kazakhstan, and etc. And here again, soft skills become very important. But I also recognize that some people would prefer, in terms of a career goals, to stay focused on their expertise area and go actually deeper in the field, go maybe into science and drive innovation and disruption. That's also, I think, that a very important career path, and that people who innovate and go actually not wide deep, they drive the world. But this is the lesson I learned. Again, is relevant for those of us or you who actually target more managerial roles. And when creating AIFC, as I mentioned once, it wasn't a project that had a support from everyone, right? It had a challenges and different points of view whether we need it, and we still face it because, for example, in Kazakhstan, before Astana International Exchange existed another exchange, local, which is actually gonna turn 30 this year. But in our view, it wasn't exactly successful in connecting Kazakhstan's capital market to global capital market. So it's quite domestic. But however, of course, being for 25 years only stock exchange in the country, they didn't receive well with the warm welcome establishment of AIX. And there were different areas that they were challenging us in regulation, in fighting for issuers and etc. On other side, we also were again challenging some of the other government bodies that were responsible for attracting investment into the country. I wouldn't say exactly that everyone was happy that we are creating a separate court with the foreign judges in it, that actually decisions of which could not be disputed in other courts of the country. They were final. So there were different challenges. And one thing I learned is it's important to choose battles wise and to avoid spreading yourself too thin, because again, as you develop and start kind of getting more portfolio of responsibilities throughout the career, you will have more and more challenges, people challenging you, issues popping up from there and there. And it's very important to prioritize, because it's just we have a capacity limits to our decision making, to our attention and everything else. So it's important to kind of prioritize and make sure that the fights that you're getting in, you have better chances to win, and actually when won those battles or outcomes of the fight will make a biggest impact in terms of your progress to the goal. So this is a very important lesson, and I cannot say that I am perfect at it myself. From times to times, I of course struggle identifying what is the best argument that I want to get in or path to choose. But of course, as the first example I used in the first lesson, it's always important also to kind of not to get stuck with the project you have or the battle you are in. So sometimes you should be able to drop it and kind of write off all the efforts you have already put and change the goal. This is also, I think, could make a big difference throughout the career. So again, this is kind of my story of moving through my career ladder, and then the lessons that I have learned. To repeat them is that first one is to be ready for the change. Second one is to be humble but bold. Third one is to discover a purpose in life, even if you can't discover it, to create one and to think long term. Fourth one is if you target the managerial role, to not to forget to develop your soft skills. And the last one is to choose battles wisely and avoid spreading yourself too thin. I hope that, again, this was interesting for my fellow alumni. This is the social networks you can find me in. I'm in LinkedIn, in Instagram, in Facebook. Try to be active to post my thoughts, updates on AIFC news we have. And also you can find the below email of my assistant. And if you have more kind of inquiries, you can also use the email and send them directly to us, to me, to my assistant. That's it from me, Dan. And I guess I'm ready for the Q&A if there is any.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Renat. Hugely inspiring and some really great lessons learned there, and a really amazing career that you seem to have had, and you're still having as well. So we do have some questions that have come in. So the first one is, how did it feel to win the British Council Award as an alumnus?
Yeah, thank you. The story, so how did I win, is actually, well, it felt great. The short answer, it of course felt great. The longer answer is, I learned it from about actually that the award exists in Facebook from one of my friends, that there is actually such a competition and I can submit my case. So then I was the CEO of Astana International Exchange, and we have created this app for investing for retail investors called Tabus, which is like from Kazakh translated as a profit. Basically, you can invest into ETFs, exchange traded funds, without having a broker. So people could in Kazakhstan invest in, for example, S&P 500, NASDAQ, Sharia compliant equities portfolio directly from the bank cards. You don't need, since you don't have a broker, you don't need to transfer your money. Basically, you buy it from card as any transaction you do in a store. And when you sell a security, money goes back to your card. We have made this product to kind of develop local capital market and increase people's understanding of what is investing, and kind of to make popular investing in securities market. And I have decided that I want to apply with this case and try to tell this story to the world, and so that they, if I will win the award, people will learn more about Kazakhstan, about AIFC, about AIX, so what we do. So it was the idea of actually sharing the knowledge. And when I was selected as the finalist with some other UK graduates from US, Germany, I think Malaysia, and some other countries, it was like already a huge achievement. I was the first global finalist from Kazakhstan. But of course, when they announced that I'm the winner, it felt great. It may give me opportunity, as I said, to visit Leicester again, to see the uni, and to share my story with other UK graduates.
That's awesome, and such a great achievement as well. A question from Edward asking about access to the recording of this meeting. That will be as soon as possible. We will, the alumni engagement team will ensure that is sent out ASAP. But a question also from Edward to you was, what do you mean by not spreading yourself too thin? Do you have kind of any examples of where you've perhaps gone and spread yourself too thin, and where you've decided, actually I need to kind of focus more?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I cannot give all the details, because this is still some of the fights are still going on, right? And yeah, it's like on a level that I wouldn't yet want to tell. But anyway, for example, a good example that I will use from the past. So my first CFA level 1 exam I have passed in 2010 when I came back from Leicester Uni. So Leicester Uni gave me good enough knowledge to pass the first level, and I did it straight away. I didn't have to prepare for it long. But then when I applied for the second level, and for those who are familiar with chartered financial analyst, the second level is really demanding in terms of remembering all the formulas, all the math stuff. It's very intensive in numbers and etc. And this is the most challenging one. And that was exactly in 2011 when we were preparing for issuing the first sukuk. And since this was the first sukuk, we didn't have yet in the country proper legislation for the sukuks. We were doing it in Malaysia. So I had to spend a lot of time on the phone and with investment banks discussing the structure of the transaction, because it also involved, you are basically issuing sukuk in Malaysia, so it comes, money you receive is ringgit, but we don't need ringgit here. We have to change it for US dollars. So it was a complex transaction. Anyway, so I thought that I can do manage both and then pass the CFA 2 exam, which I failed and I couldn't pass, though I had to defer it for actually 2 years because I wasn't ready to take it next year after a failure. I mean, as probably a lot of A students, we are very difficult with the taking fails as a result. So that basically, if I had paused myself on preparing for the CFA, probably I could do it 1 year faster. I guess now it's not important, but that's basically what I mean. You have to sometimes focus on one thing and kind of pause others. In that case, business and job was more important, and I should have focused more on that rather than trying to do the CFA exam at the same time. And that's basically very like innocent kind of example. But as I said, as you progress through career, these fights become more important, more impactful on your life. Of course, as you build your family, that adds to that selection choices, right? Sometimes you have to prioritize. Of course, you have to always prioritize your family, but I mean, sometimes you need to spend more time in the family, especially as your kids grow, and then they have to go either for first grade or go through challenges of their own, and they really need your support. You kind of have to pause in other parts of your life. So that's what I mean. I mean, it's very difficult to be excellent. It's almost impossible to be excellent at everything you do.
There's only so many plates you can spin, I suppose.
Yeah, same saying, right?
Another question that has come in, would you ever complete a PhD at the University of Leicester? And if so, what would you do your PhD in?
Oh, that's a good question. I always like think about that, but as again, as I just said, right, I'm just not ready for this battle doing my PhD, given that I have this financial center to develop and make sure that it's actually recognized as we are supposed to according to our constitutional law. But if I would be doing it, I would probably do it in economics for developing countries, right? Again, something that we struggle with today, and then you can have kind of different views and different examples of how a country is developing, and many people, scientists, try to put the question of why some countries fail and why some are successful, right? So that's I think one very area that I would want to go and understand better, meaning that for developing markets, whether straight away going for market economy, open economy is good, or you kind of in certain areas, sectors of economy, you have to give more government support and protect it for it to grow enough to compete on a global level, and etc. There is these kind of questions that I think a lot of the developing countries are facing.
So potentially one day you might be back to the University of Leicester doing your
Yes. Hopefully so.
When you've got fewer balls to juggle as well. Another metaphor in there. A question from Asim Bakri has asked, how do you evaluate the AI in the financial sector and the benefits and challenges from this new trend globally?
Well, that's a good question again, because I personally believe that innovation is a DNA of AIFC. So creating this jurisdiction was an innovation. So we have we kind of give big emphasis into innovations, especially in fintech, and AI is becoming hugely discussed topic, right? Probably can think of crypto a few years ago when everyone was talking, and like whether this blockchain and distributed ledger technology will disrupt the financial markets. I think it's still relevant. It didn't yet, but I think it has a huge potential for making financial industry more effective. Same with AI. Robo advisors, for example, in investment, they've been existent for few years already, right, with a different level of success. But I think that with the development of AI, how much information it can analyze in a and how effectively it can do it, I think AI could be very it could be disruptive in creating tailored investment portfolios for people, taking again into account so many factors that single human being financial consultant will have difficulty to do so. And especially like if you build kind of legal technology in it, and then the regtech regulation and etc. I think that AI could be really effective in creating tailored portfolios. And algo trading again existed for many years. Algorithmic trading and exploiting arbitrages on the market. Again, AI could be change that market and make it much more effective, absorbing all the available public information, but actually being better at finding information and again applying it for the financial market. So I think this is a huge new area that could change the whole surface of the financial industry for a given country or actually globally.
And indeed everything as well, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So another question we've had come in from Diana. She said, you mentioned some of your soft skills that you were most useful to progress in your career, e.g. negotiation, interpersonal skills, public speaking. Has anything or anyone in particular helped you in developing these through courses or hobbies or your network, or was it simply learning by doing?
It's both, right? So I have actually developed my public speaking skills in high school because I was part of the debate club, and I think that kind of helped me a lot in terms of not just public speaking skills, but also in terms of a critical thinking. I mean, some of you probably did debate, so you always know if there is a statement, you kind of straight away think on both sides, pro arguments and against arguments. But also it helped me kind of think more in a structured way and talk in a more structured way. So default structure of my speech when I speak anywhere is a statement, argument, support for the argument, second argument, support for the argument. If I have time, it's 3 arguments and then the conclusion. If I don't have time, it's 2. So it kind of helps you to structure that. But even though I had that skills, I mean, I still work with the trainers. I go for the different courses on public speaking, on argumentation, because and especially working with the journalists, how to answer tough questions on media, especially given in what kind of geopolitical situation we live with the war in Ukraine and giving the close proximity of Kazakhstan to that. I mean, of course, we go through more professional training for that. And some of the things like delegation, of course, I have learned on the job just by doing it, again, by struggling to complete all the tasks myself. You kind of start delegating smaller tasks, then bigger and bigger, and then you learn to trust into people to actually make sure that guidance you give is clear. And then if you are not communicating clear what you want from people, you shouldn't expect an outcome that will satisfy you, right? So again, something that I have learned, and those kind of things you just learn by doing.
Great answer. Thankfully, no hard-hitting questions from any journalists in this session. A question that's come through. Do you have any advice for anyone? Because you had quite a big gear change in your life from kind of international relations into the world of finance. Do you have any advice for those that are thinking, actually, do you know what? I want a complete career change and gear change in my life?
If you're thinking about, you should be already doing it. I mean, if you have already, I mean, again, I may be wrong, but that's, I think, one of the success factors in career is to be passionate about what you do. So if you have already started doubting that this is something you want to be doing for the rest of your life, it's probably already time to kind of think about changing it and looking for your passion. I think sometimes people are too concerned about how much money they can make, but I believe that if you are like expert and you can become an expert actually about, with being passionate, you always be in demand whatever you are doing, right? And you can make good money, but also it's just, you know, like living with a person that you don't like, right? You don't want to spend your time because with that person, same with the job, you probably unconsciously will try to avoid that job or spend less time or spend again too much time doing some other stuff. Therefore, you are cannot be successful. Without, if you are not be successful, then you will not progress. So it's better to find something that you would be happy to doing actually.
And that kind of leads into my next question, which we might actually use as our final question as well. So you've talked a lot about purpose and kind of your goals. How do you channel that into to what you do, and what would you say are your next steps in your career, in your life? Not necessarily a PhD. What's your kind of overall ambitions, kind of your next steps?
Well, I think I'm now at quite a senior position in the government, right? So I, for example, do directly report to the president, but I've been in a role only for 7 months. So my career aspiration is actually to now execute on the projects and ideas that we have. So if we have, for example, this the stock exchange, right, to increase its turnover and within hopefully 5 years to make sure that it's upgrades from, I mean, it's maybe too technical, but upgrade from frontier market to emerging market status. That again, we create an environment where startups, people can raise capital. We are doing already some of it. For example, we have created a whole industry of crowdfunding, which didn't exist in Kazakhstan before. So now we have 4 startups in AIFC who do crowdfunding, and they already supported 230 micro entrepreneurs to raise over 10 billion KZT of money, which is in USD, it's probably about $100,000 per project. So you think kind of it's not that big money, but for those micro entrepreneurs, it's actually makes a difference between survival of the business and going bankrupt. We helping different, so venture capital industry is now developing in AIFC. So we're helping these startups to raise money, to actually get access to the investors, not just in Kazakhstan, because there are very few in Kazakhstan, but from Singapore, from Middle East. So I want to make sure that kind of we have another unicorn, what they call it, a 1 billion valued startup will be created in AIFC. So that kind of aspirations, right? And that's the what kind of motivates me, and I communicate to people, right? To kind of through the stories. I have this practice of having at least once in a month town hall meetings where we gather the whole AIFC family, which are different institutions like the exchange, court, our regulator, and etc. And again, the purpose of this town hall is that I, as the most senior person, report on the recent progress. So what we have achieved as a center, what kind of news we have, then ask my colleagues from different parts of AIFC to kind of present what they are doing, so that everyone will understand what others are doing, so that there is more of a collaborative culture. And of course, I talk about the purpose, about the goals, try to motivate everyone through the stories that we have, success cases, and etc. So I think that's is like an important communication path, so that people on different levels at the AIFC can hear these messages directly from the governor, from other senior people here.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for giving up your time this evening, Renat. It's been amazing to hear about your time at Leicester, your career, your time at AIFC, and also I think we've all learned something a bit more about how it works in Kazakhstan as well. So
sorry for details, if they were not clear.
No. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I appreciate it's also midnight where you're in Astana as well. So a big thank you for that. A huge thank you to our audience for taking the time to join us this evening as well. A huge thank you to the alumni engagement team for setting up today's event, and I'm sure there'll be many more of these events as well. One last thing I would encourage you to do is fill in. There's a post-event evaluation form. The link will be sent in the chat. I think right now the team are posting that. This is an email will be shared with you shortly to tell you about the upcoming Festival of Change events, but also the link to the recording of this, and also the transcript as well. So filling in the evaluation form will really help us improve our events in the future, and also give us a steer on what else we can run as well. So thank you once again to Renat. It's been amazing hearing from you. I'm sure we will carry on watching what you do with keen interest, and thank you all for your evening, and I look forward to seeing you all at a University of Leicester event very soon. I'll leave the event running just so you can complete your evaluation form, but thank you again and have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Sadi. Especially thank you, Kelly, and for the university for organizing it. And I would encourage fellow alumni to visit the university if you can. It's really worth it. It's kind of reminds of the university days when we were students. I mean, I have enjoyed it a lot, and I hope that we can have some alumni event in the university on the campus, and can maybe at some point meet in person. Thank you everyone for joining and listening for my story. I hope it wasn't boring, and there is some takeaways for you. Bye bye. Have a good night.